Welcome back to National Report. The Trump administration now asking the Supreme Court to uphold President Trump's executive order, which would end birthright citizenship. The president issuing the order on his first day in office, but the courts have blocked it ever since.
So the Trump administration is arguing that the view of the 14th Amendment's promise of citizenship is, quote, mistaken in two petitions. Government lawyers are saying the clause was adopted to confer citizenship on the newly freed slaves and their children, not on the children of aliens temporarily visiting the United States or of illegal aliens. So, with all that, let's bring in Judge Andrew Napolitano, our senior judicial analyst. Great to have you back here, Judge.
Good morning. Always a pleasure, guys.
Break this down for us. Will the Supreme Court actually pick up this case? But overall, can you explain it to our viewers?
Sure. So there was a trial going on in New Hampshire in federal court about the purpose and meaning of the 14th Amendment. If you read the 14th Amendment, it says everyone born here and subject to the jurisdiction of the United States is a United States citizen. Subject to the jurisdiction of the United States would exclude the diplomats who are here on a fleeting basis, but it would not exclude, I'm telling you this is the way the courts have ruled up until now, it would not exclude women who've come across the border to give birth and just for the purpose of giving birth so that their baby is an American citizen and thereby the baby and thus the mother are entitled to benefits that are accorded to American citizens. That's the Trump administration argument, that the 14th Amendment was not intended for that purpose, that it was only intended for children of slaves, former slaves, people that, indigenous people to the United States, Native Americans.
Right.
However, it has been interpreted in the past 150 years to mean everybody born here except for the children of diplomats. While that case is being tried in New Hampshire, the Justice Department has asked the Supreme Court, did this on Friday, to go to its emergency shadow docket. You've heard me complain about this, the sort of yes, no, stop, go, we'll tell you when and how and why later, and rule on the 14th Amendment quickly and in an emergency basis.
Okay.
So we don't know what the court is going to do. They had the 14th Amendment issue before them last term, but they only ruled on whether or not the judges could issue, you'll remember this, universal injunctions.
Sure.
Injunctions against the president everywhere or just injunctions against the president with respect to the litigants before him, before the court. They ruled for the latter. They never got to the core issue of what does the 14th Amendment mean. I'd be quite surprised if they do something this momentous on their emergency docket.
Okay, let's dive into what Cecilia Wang, the National Legal Director of the American Civil Union, Liberties Union, had to say about this. You can pull it up, folks. She says this: if and when the court takes up birthright citizenship, the president will be going against the U.S. Constitution, a 127-year-old Supreme Court precedent, and an act of Congress, and he will lose. And it goes back to the Trump's argument, though, when the original, framers and writers of the Constitution, did they envision women who are, by the way, not medically advised to travel in their final months of pregnancy to board the plane and, participate in what's known as birth tourism, where you decide to either overstay a visa or make a decision where, I'm just going to find a U.S. hospital and now my baby's a U.S.
I can tell you with certainty there is no reference to birth tourism in the debates over the 14th Amendment in 1868.
Right, exactly.
It just wasn't a phenomenon at the time. The phrase didn't exist, and it wasn't a concern. So this makes it very, very interesting. Should the court try to figure out what the framers meant when they wrote the 14th Amendment, or should they look at what the framers wrote when they wrote the 14th Amendment? If you look at the latter, it says everybody born here. If you look at the former, clearly they weren't thinking about people hopping over the border.
Absolutely.